know, these are nations that have been free from colonization for as long as African Americans have had the right to vote. So that's something that is very important for us to keep in mind. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be in the house of the Lord this morning. I have a short presentation on two countries in Africa, Tanzania and Rwanda. Just a little background about myself for those of you who may not know me or remember. I graduated a few years ago with my bachelor's degree in international relations and African studies, and I was blessed during that time in school to be able to travel abroad to Africa. So this is just a brief presentation about some things that I learned when I was in school that I'm so glad to be able to share during Black History Month. So first, I just wanted to orient everyone to the map that's coming up behind me. The region that we're going to be talking about is East Africa. If you all remember last week when Miss Brittany talked about some of the Bantu areas that she was from and her history, that would be the red area in Eastern Africa. The countries that I'm going to talk about again, I'm going to start with Rwanda. Now, Rwanda, the main thing that everybody knows about Rwanda is the genocide in 1994, right? Everybody remembers the movie in Hotel Rwanda where 1 million people were killed by each other, their countrymen, in 100 days. Now, that's a horrible thing that we do know about Rwanda, but there are so many other great things that the nation has done in the past and has going on right now. Now, Rwanda is a small country. You see the map behind me, it looks really big. But if you look on the map to the side of me, I wanted to show you all in relation to the nations that it is actually close to. Rwanda is actually one of the smallest countries. It is one of the 3 smallest countries in Africa. So this is Rwanda next to all of these big, giant countries that you see on the map, outlined in purple. So Rwanda is a very, very small country. It's landlocked, which means it doesn't have any bodies of water next to it. So there's no way for them to get food or have machinery or anything made in their country. They have to have it shipped through other countries, which is a reason why they suffer economically right now. Like I said, there's no water next to it. They have to pay the countries that they're next to over here to ship in their food, their goods, their manufacturing, anything that they want, basically. Now, an interesting fact about Rwanda is actually their biggest import, and the way they make their most money has something to do with what the women will be doing on Saturday. That's right, tea. Their biggest export is tea. That's how they make most of their money. Almost 80% of the money of the entire economy is based on selling tea. So when you're drinking tea on Saturday, maybe some of the ladies will be thinking about Rwanda. So that is their main export. And something interesting that I learned when I was in Rwanda is that they actually reserve their worst tea reserves for the people who live inside the country so that they can sell the best stuff to us and charge us more money for it. But if that's your only export, that's what I would do too, right? So when you hear about Rwanda, you hear about African countries in the news, that's something to think about. Why are things the way that they are? It's based sometimes on things like geography, not on, they're a tribe or something that we may have heard on the news. It's usually based on economics. And Ms. Gary did a great Sunday school lesson this morning where she talked about trade amongst the other groups in the EU and the European Union. The East African Coalition, of which Rwanda is a part, does the same thing. So all of the countries that you see here on the map next to me trade with Rwanda, and they provide them all of their food goods. They provide them the entirety of their economy that's not tea, which is an important thing to know. Now, just other basic facts about Rwanda. The life expectancy of Rwanda has gone up significantly in the past couple of decades since the genocide. So the life expectancy is now 54 years old. Now, to put that into perspective, our life expectancy, I think, is usually somewhere around 65 to 75 years of age in the United States, depending on what group you're a part of. So if you're African American, it's lower. If you're white or some other race, it's usually a bit higher. But the reason that their life expectancy is what it is, they have almost 75% of their population is under the age of 23. Wow. So that is very, very young population due to the genocide in 1994. Now, there's a lot I could get into about that, but we'll save that one for another time, because I'm sure that's something that most of the people in the room have lived through. Yeah. So I won't belabor those points. Now, the major religions in Rwanda are Christianity and indigenous beliefs. What are indigenous beliefs? That means systems of beliefs that have existed for hundreds and thousands of years that usually are mixed with some forms of Christianity. But most people are Christian. And the population is 11.2 million people. Now, to put that in perspective, that small country that looks about the size of South Carolina has a population that is almost 4 times the size of everybody that we have in this state. So that's a lot of people in a small area. Again, with no way to get economic ties but through the countries around them. Now, Rwanda's nickname is the land of 1,000 hills, because this is what their geography looks like. You go to Rwanda and that's all you see, and it's beautiful, but it's all green and all rolling hills. Now, in order to grow anything on those hills, they actually have to do a special type of farming, because they have so many people and so little food that they have to farm every postage stamp size inch of land that they have. And they farm tea, they farm other crops and goods just for them to eat and survive on the sides of those hills. So it is a very resilient country full of very resilient people, if we look at things in the right perspective. Now, this is the president of Rwanda. This is Paul Kagame. Paul Kagame has been the president of Rwanda since 1994, so since the genocide. He was actually the leader of the Rwandan Patriotic Front, who came and swept in from Uganda, a neighboring country, and actually stopped the war. So he stopped the war. Long story short, he saved the people, and he's been the president of Rwanda ever since. So he's implemented lots of great changes. He has about him what they call the Kagame mystique. That's like how we felt about President Obama in 2004. That's right, and most people do hand claps on that. So he has a certain mystique about him, because he has saved the people of his nation. He saved millions of people's lives, which is why he's been the president for so long. So he implemented they have a national dairy company, and they have learned to be resilient economically, because although they don't grow or export, although they don't have industry, what they do have is the possibility for what they call service industry. So like when you go get your hair done, when you get your nails done, when you travel to Rwanda, when you take tours, those things are services. So they have a service-based industry that he has learned to make resilient and grow, and has attracted people from all over the world to come to Rwanda. He attracted me. I went to Rwanda. So, and it's not cheap. So that's how they have learned to be resilient in the face of the challenges that have been set up by where they are. They have silverback gorillas that they sell tour tickets. That's right, Sharon, silverback gorillas that they have sold tickets for people to go, and you hike up a mountain. You pay somebody to go hike up a mountain and be an arm's length away from silverback apes in Rwanda. In resilience, I'm telling you, they've convinced people to do that. That's like selling ice to an Eskimo. Why would you do that? Why would you do it? But I did it. And it's something amazing. It's one of the amazing things about the industry there. But those are just a few things that I learned while I was there on my trip. And I do have some souvenirs that I'd like to share with you all at the end of the presentation. But that's just a little dip into the pool about Rwanda and just about the nation in itself. So the next thing, I'll move on now to Tanzania. So Tanzania is the neighboring nation of Rwanda. So as small as Rwanda is, you see this small country here? This big giant country down at the bottom is Tanzania. So they're two polar opposites. So Rwanda was a nation where 1 million people were killed in 100 days, which is 3 months. But Tanzania is the most stable nation in all of sub-Saharan Africa. That means Black Africa. It's the most stable nation. in the entire country. Now, the nation is, as you can see, it has a large body of water beside it. That's the Indian Ocean. So they have lots of trading partners from Asia, from Europe, and from all over the world. Now, their main exports are minerals. They have gold, gemstones, diamonds, coal, coffee, cashews, nuts, tobacco, a plant called sisal, which, as you'll see, is something that they weave baskets and lots of things out of. And they also have imports, which are mainly machinery and transport equipment. So again, you'll see the theme that African nations missed the Industrial Revolution, meaning that a lot of machinery and those jobs that we felt like we've been losing since the 90s, those are things that Africa, most of Africa never even had access to or even began. They weren't in the industry of making anything to know what it felt like to lose those jobs. So they've had a below poverty level median of about 55% for generations since the 1960s, when they were freed by Britain from colonization in about 1963. Now, the life expectancy in Tanzania is somewhat higher. It's 58 years of age. And their population is also very large, 47.6 million people. So yes, several times that of Rwanda, but they also have a very mountainous region in the north, which has less inhabitation by more people. So it's still cities with lots of people packed inside. Wow. Behind me, you'll see a photo of the first president of Rwanda. That's Julius Nyerere. That's the gentleman standing in front. And the gentleman standing to his left is President Kennedy. That's correct. So in 1963, that's how close it was. That's how recent it was that Tanzania became its own free nation within the lifetimes of some people sitting in the room. That's when it became a free nation, almost 40 or 50 years ago in 1963. And this was in his ceremony of, I believe, his first receipt into the nation of the United States as a president. Now you'll see also two Swahili words beneath his name that I've written. So Julius Nyerere is known in Tanzania because he negotiated with the British and started the African Union, which is like the United Nations of the continent of Africa. So he's known as Baba wa Taifa. Baba means father, Wa is of, and Taifa is nation. So if I say Baba wa Taifa, that means father of the nation. Julius Nyerere, he birthed Tanzania through his leadership and through negotiating with the British for their freedom. And it took him 11 years, which is why, again, he became the first president of the United Nation of Tanzania. You'll also see the word Mwalimu underneath his name. Mwalimu means teacher, because Julius Nyerere was a teacher by trade before he actually stepped into the role of being a politician and birthed what's called the Arusha Declaration that he declared for the freedom of his nation. Now, Julius Nyerere was the president for many decades. He was the president for almost 2 or 3 decades before his death in 1999. And so this is an older picture of Julius Nyerere. And I put this picture up here because I have some money from Tanzania that I'll pass around later, and you'll recognize his photo is on the money, again, because he's the father of the nation. And the last slide I have is of the current president of Tanzania. And I just did this to illustrate that that most African nations, once they do pass the torch and they actually do have elections, they will only have a couple of generations of leaders. So there have only been about 3 leaders of the nation of Tanzania in its entire existence. Wow. So this is the current president of Tanzania. Again, I hope you all learned a little bit in the presentation. I could talk for days and hours and go very in depth. Like I said, if anybody has any questions or they want to engage in any other conversation in the future or after this, I would love to talk about it. But, you know, we are 2 groups who are tied very much historically, even though we may, some of us may never go to Africa and go, to countries all over and things like that and visit and talk and things like that with one another. But it's important to remember not just our history of, Africans were brought to the United States and enslaved and made to work, and those are our ancestors mixed with some other people that they don't tell us we're mixed with and things like that. it's important to know those things, but it's important also to know that our timelines are very similar and we have so much more in common than we think, and we can learn from each other, especially when we talk about economic growth and when we talk about being resilient in the face of what our circumstance may be at any point. So that's the underlying theme here, and I hope again that it was something that we were able to learn from this morning. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you. And